Greetings builders, Daniel here, and today I'm gonna show you 3 of the most played builds during the second week of the Settlers of Kalguur League. If you wanna try any of those, you can find links for POBs and complete guides in the video description. And if this video helps you, please leave a thumbs up to support the channel. Thank you very much, and let's get into it! Let's start with this super strong build that is being played by over 10% of high level players, the Archmage Ice Nova Hierophant with the Templar class. This build stacks as much mana as possible to take advantage of the Archmage support gem that grants up to 19% of your mana as extra lightning damage. The skill of choice was the Transfigured gem Ice Nova of Frostbolts that deals a lot more damage when casted near a Frostbolt. And to make things smoother, we're using the Kitava's helmet to automatically cast the Frostbolts for us. To visit the pros of this build, I would start with its boss damage. All of those overlapping Ice Novas on countless Frostbolts cause bosses to die like simple monsters. The clear speed is awesome as well. With the help of Frostblink of Wintry Blast, we can zoom through maps very fast while casting Ice Novas in all directions. It's just amazing. Now to visit the cons, I'll start saying that this build isn't cheap. It needs a few Divine Orbs to work properly. Another issue is that you must have extra mana in all pieces of equipment, and that might make the gearing process a little harder. Now talking about the budget, as mentioned before, this build isn't cheap. You need to invest at least 10 Divine Orbs to make it work. Don't forget that on PoEBuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. You only need 2 mandatory unique items for this build. The first and most important is the Kitava's helmet that triggers socketed gems when you use at least 100 mana in one cast. This makes the Frostbolts needed to be casted automatically for a lot smoother clear speed. Next, we also need the Anathema ring that causes our curse limit to be the same as our maximum power charges, in this case 4. For clear speed, I'll give this build 10 out of 10. We're just super fast and our Ice Novas are all over the place the whole time. You won't even have the chance to see the enemies before they get obliterated. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. It's just so many overlapping Ice Novas being casted on countless Frostbolts that the bosses won't even have the chance to survive over than 2 seconds. For this survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. And not only have a big pool of life and energy shield, but also 50% of the damage is taken from mana before life. And as you know, we have a lot of mana on this build. We also hit enemies so many times per second that the instant leech causes your life to be full almost 100% of the time. Now we have a fast and strong skill that is being played by over 5% of high level players, the Infernal Flicker Strike Ascendant with the Scion class. This build uses the unique sword Auto Sacrifice to sustain the frenzy charges needed for you to keep flickering, but that's not any Auto's flicker build. This one also chills and shocks enemies for a lot more damage, clear speed and survivability. To list the pros of this build, I would of course start with its clear speed. Flicker is just incredibly fast and super cool to play. This build also counts with an amazing boss damage and high survivability. Now, to list the cons, the first thing that comes to my mind is that you're always very close to enemies, which is a vulnerable position. Another issue is that you have little control over your character, making it hard on bosses where you need to mind your position or attack the right enemy. As for budget, you can get it destroying early in the game maps with only around 90 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. We need 2 mandatory unique items for this build. The first and most important is the Auto Sacrifice sword that allows you to maintain your frenzy charges always up even while flickering. Next, we also need the Call of the Void ring that causes your attacks to chill and shatter enemies. This ring might be a little expensive during the first days of a new league, but don't worry, you'll be fine without it while waiting for the prices to drop. For clear speed, this build is surely a 10 out of 10. As any other flicker build, this one is also insanely fast, so fast that some players can even play without getting nauseous. The boss damage is great and deserves 9 out of 10. This build achieves high amounts of DPS capable of decimating even the big bosses in just seconds. Now for the survivability, I'll only give it 8 out of 10. Even though this build still has almost 100,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion and spell suppression, I had to take 2 points out because they're always very close to enemies. Finally, we have one of the best starters out there, the Toxic Rank Pathfinder with the Ranger class. This build uses the permafrost and chaos damage of Pathfinder to deploy many powerful pods that drain the life out of your enemies. To list the pros of this build, I would start with how easy it is to put together. You don't need any mandatory unique item and the leveling is very simple. Another great feature of this build is that your flasks are going to stay up all the time, even on boss fights, and the life regeneration from your life flask will be eternal, making the damage over time look like a joke to you. This build is great for beginners because you end up having great clear, boss damage and survivability with low investment. Now to list the cons, the main issue of this build is mana. Since we're dealing with a damage over time build, we cannot reach mana or life. Because of that issue, we need rare rings that reduce the mana cost of skills. As for budget, you can get it destroying early in game maps with only around 100 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 150 chaos, and for easily completing our atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines, where you can totally do it with less. For clear speed, this build gets 9 out of 10. As a Pathfinder, your Quicksilver and Silver flasks are going to have more effect and be up 100% of the time, granting a lot of attack and movement speed. Also, you only need to deploy the pods once and they will drain surrounding enemies, granting a smooth gameplay. The boss damage also gets 9 out of 10. Combining your strength with Toxic Rank totems, bosses just drawing countless pods. Even the big bosses are going to melt like butter before your eyes. For this survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This is because this build has high evasion, high armor and spell suppression. Also, your defensive flasks have more effect and are up all the time, even on bosses. Above all, you can use Toxic Rank from a safe distance and its pods heavily slow down enemies. And that's it for today, guys. Are you playing any of those meta builds? Please take a second to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day. And don't forget to keep building!